Are several announcements. The first is that I was informed, as all of you have been or would have seen, that former member of this House, Mr. Cayman Sankar, who held the Golden Arrow Achievement, died on 11th of February 2014 at his residence at Hampton Court, Essequibo. Essequibo Court, rather, after a prolonged illness. Mr. Sankar was 87 years of age and entered the House in 1986 in the 5th Parliament as a member of the People's National Congress for the first time, filling the vacancy of Mrs. Bisundai Beni Prashad Raymond. Mr. Sankar continued in the 5th Parliament as an ordinary member until the Parliament was dissolved on the 29th of August 1992. As a mark of respect for his service and the life and contribution he made not only to this House, but to the nation in general, I ask that we stand and observe a minute's silence. That this morning I received this voluminous document, which is really what appears to be a writ of summons number 29 or a motion of 2014, filed on behalf of the Ghana Cricket Board and 10 other plaintiffs, an action brought against the Honorable Attorney General of Ghana, the Minister of Culture and Sport, and the Speaker of the National Assembly, seeking declarations and orders by the court regarding the House's ability to pass the much-touted cricket legislation. I have not had a chance to read this document, and I hold the view that the court can't injunct this House from proceeding with the debate on the bill. For my own part, I would like a chance, however, to read what is being said here. It's about 300 or more pages, or at least a ream of paper. I don't know whether I will need legal counsel, or whether or not the matter really is of no moment. Nevertheless, I do believe that some time should be taken, but I did confer with members of both government and opposition on the matter, and it is believed that perhaps we could adjourn or defer today's reading, subject of course to the wish of the members, but I certainly, being named as respondent, unfortunately once again, have not had a chance to go through these 300 plus pages that were served on me this morning. And so I have urged the members to consider a referral of the second reading of this bill so that we all could be properly advised. But that is not to say, as I am reiterating or am restating, that this motion is in any way a bar on this House and its ability to proceed. So I take it that there is consensus that we will defer the second reading of this bill. Thank you. I wish as well to announce, as members would have observed, that the clerk and I, after conferring with the Parliamentary Management Committee, have sought to make the chamber more comfortable for members by having new chairs put in. I know that there is some discomfort for some, and I hope that we will appreciate the effort made by the Parliament Office. Hopefully we will also refurbish the desks to bring them up to make the chamber appear more stately in terms of the furnishings. But the chairs are provided. We know that there are some concerns and some complaints, but we will address them. But the overall intent, as I said, is to lift the standard, and we hope at some time also to improve the seating for members of the public and press, even though they offend the rules from time to time. We will be making sure that they are properly seated. My third announcement, which I will make now, is that on or about the 23rd of December, I did receive from the hand of the clerk a motion filed by Mr. Carl Greenwich regarding Honourable Minister of Finance, and clerk and I have been conferring and also sought advice of a senior counsel, and my ruling is in fact ready and will be circulated, but suffice it to say for now that I have found that in one part that I will refer the matter to the Privileges Committee, and for another part I will not. My ruling, I'm told, is currently being reproduced and will be made available for members to peruse. Those are my announcements. Please proceed.
Presentation of petitions, presentation of papers and reports, etc.
Any reports to present here? Honourable members, I present to the Assembly the minutes of proceedings of the 14th meeting of the Committee of Selection, which was held on Thursday, 20 February 2014. I also take the opportunity to remind members that at the break, the adjournment, we will be having a meeting of the Committee of Selection as well, so that we may elect a chairman of the clerk of the National Assembly Special Select Committee. That will take place at 4. Thank you. Please proceed.
Reports and committees. Board questions without notice.
Honourable members, earlier today, the Honourable Member Mr. Wilson Felix did speak to me about presenting some more questions, and send those questions to Parliament Office in the time that was the expected time, that is on or about 10 a.m. However, Mr. Felix, the request just asks for the right to ask questions. And the specific questions that you wish to pose, and in fact we were delaying our sitting waiting for you to come this afternoon. Because the clerk spoke to me about it. Because we just have your request to ask the question, but the actual questions, I really would have liked to sit with you and the clerk and I to see the specific question. One second, please, assign that. Please. After confirming with the clerk, Mr. Felix, invite you to ask the question, and then we will then determine whether or not we will allow it to go ahead. But because you did give the notice indeed. And I do have some idea, but in terms of the specific question, the practice is to set it out so that we know whether or not it qualifies. So I'd allow you to ask the question, but then depending on the nature of the specific question, I would say whether or not we go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I apologize for my late arrival. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask one question of the Honourable Prime Minister, which is divided into 3 parts, concerning reports in the newspaper issued on the 24th, Monday the 24th, and Tuesday the 25th of February 2014, concerning an accident which occurred about 9 p.m. on Sunday the 23rd of February 2014, involving Hayakar HB 7194, which was driven by Jackie Shift Turan, and PMM 3860, which was driven.
Okay. I know what Ms. Isaac is coming to me with, because we're reading it. Any question or any issue regarding any member of the House can only be brought up on a specific motion. I'm sure that's what the clerk is doing. Yeah. He's also referring to the content of the question shall not be asked as to whether statements in the video or of private individuals or bodies are accurate. So,
well, Mr. Speaker, then I may proceed with the question apart from the
let's say it. Like I'm saying, if on two grounds, one, the conduct of no member will be inquired into by this House unless under a specific motion to that effect. That is the standing order. And then there's a second standing order that pertains to the content of the question, that the private conduct of a member may not be the subject of a question. But if you may put your question in a
Mr. Speaker, having regard to your remarks and to the apparent breaches of the law by the Honourable Minister, apart from the accident, it behoves me to ask the Honourable Prime Minister whether members of Parliament on the government side of this House are exempted from the law.
Your Honor, on a point of order.
I need to confirm very clear. Who gives advice in these matters? The clerk advises that there is, in his opinion, nothing, and I share that in the general terms there's nothing wrong with the question. But I will hear the point of order that is being raised.
Mr. Speaker, questions without notice are expected in the order paper. The questions without notice are defined. This question is not urgent, nor is it relevant to the business. Secondly, sir, it is so general that it has no purport in this House. It's a general comment. And I believe that, Mr. Speaker, we are stretching the practices of this House into realms of unacceptability. I do not agree that this first question. The second issue is that if we are to follow the standing orders, sir, and if this is supposed to be the mantra that we cover in this House, first of all, the question is supposed to be approved by you. If you are now starting a practice in this House, sir, that anybody can come up with a question without notice on the floor and raise it, then I think that we need to go back to the Standing Order Committee and start rewriting these standing orders. Because we cannot be holding the standing orders as our guideline and letting a member who should have cleared with you. If we as on this side of the House have to inform you that a minister is making a statement in this House, and to advise you, one, that the minister is doing so, and two, what is the subject nature. Under the former speaker, we have to actually give him the content of the speech of the former minister, of the minister. You have been more gracious. But the point is, the standing orders say the minister must inform the speaker. We cannot have a situation where a member of parliament will get up under oral questions without and ask him
Honourable member, I've heard the question and I did say that we will hear the question before determining whether or not it should be answered. The question has been asked. I do not believe that it should be answered. In any event, questions as to privileges fall within the remit of the speaker, yours truly, and the clerk in terms of what privileges are enjoyed, let me put it that way, by members of the House. But the question must be considered urgent or be relevant to this proceedings. So having heard, I would rule that the question, there's no reason for an answer to be provided. Thank you. Proceed with the question.
Questions or notice?
Proceed with the question.
Statements by ministers, including policy statements.
All members have been informed by the Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs that she wishes to make a statement by a minister that I was probably notified of. Please proceed, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, colleague members of Parliament, I rise to inform this House on the progress of discussions between the governments of the Republic of Guyana and the Federative Republic of Brazil on the development of key infrastructure projects in Guyana under the rubric of Guyana-Brazil Cooperation. Mr. Speaker, on December 5, 2012, the two countries signed a memorandum of understanding on infrastructure development with the aim of stimulating projects in the area of hydropower, road development, and the construction of a deepwater port. The memorandum of understanding established a Guyana-Brazil technical working group with a mandate, and I quote, to produce proposals for concrete actions, as well as timetables for the implementation of the following projects to be presented to the presidents of both states in the first semester of 2013. 1, the construction of hydroelectric plants. 2, construction of transmission lines needed to distribute any energy that would be generated eventually. 3, improvement of the Guyana-Brazil road link. And 4, the construction of a deepwater port. After 4 meetings of the Joint Technical Working Group, 3 in Georgetown and 1 in Boa Vista, the group submitted its report in July 2013 to their Excellencies President Donald Ramotar and Dilma Rousseff. The Guyana-Brazil Joint Working Group recommended in that report the following. In terms of the Linden-Lethem Road, to complement the work already done, an engineering design study of the road, or an engineering design of the road, must be completed in order to advance the project. With respect to hydropower development, they recommended that pre-feasibility and feasibility studies be carried out at 2 sites in the middle and upper Mazaruni in order to make a final determination on the way forward. Concerning the development of a deepwater port, it was recognized that the road and the port are separate projects, but they are interrelated because the port will depend in part on goods coming out of Brazil, mainly the city of Manaus. It is estimated that this route will reduce costs associated with exports from the north of Brazil. The group felt that if there is positive movement with the road and hydropower development, there will be automatic interest in the port by the private sector. Upon receiving the report of the Joint Working Group with the aforementioned recommendations, the 2 presidents endorsed the report and approved the establishment of a joint commission for the development of infrastructure projects in Guyana, which would monitor the progress of the projects agreed upon. The commission is chaired on the Guyana side by Ambassador Elizabeth Harper. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, with regard to the development of hydropower, most members in the National Assembly will know that efforts at joint collaboration between Guyana and Brazil are not new. They commenced soon after the establishment of diplomatic relations between the 2 countries in 1968. Several memoranda of understanding have been signed by successive governments. I now wish to inform the National Assembly that the government of Guyana and the government of Brazil have agreed to move forward with the studies that are required. And as such, the government of Guyana will commence briefings in the next few weeks with the parties represented in the National Assembly and other stakeholders, including the communities in the Middle and Upper Mazaruni, regarding the pre-feasibility and feasibility studies that are required to be undertaken. We will also be briefing the media. Needless to say, these are pre-feasibility and feasibility studies, and no decision will be taken until these studies are completed. The House will be briefed on all further developments. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, before we proceed, these are weighty matters. Is the Honourable Minister going to circulate some statements? These are very heavy matters.
The understanding is that the Honourable Minister makes a statement. That statement is circulated and will be done before we rise today. That is it.
You spoke to it before.
The practice is being critical afterwards. Go ahead, please, Mr. Clark.
Personal explanations. Request to leave to move the adjournment to the National Assembly on definite matters of urgent public importance. Motions relating to the business or sittings of the National Assembly moved by Minister. Deduction of bills, public business, government's business.
Government, we have several bills to second reading, but before I invite the subject ministers to introduce them, I wish to just recognize in our presence this afternoon Mr. David Patterson, former member of this Assembly, and Mr. Calistro, also known as the Mighty Chief, also former member of this House, who have joined us to grace us with their presence. Welcome. Thank you. Honourable members, we have the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment Bill 2014, Bill number 4, 2014. It was published firstly on the 29th of January 2014. That bill is in the name of the Honourable Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs. I invite you, sir, to indicate your preference.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to seek your Honour's leave to defer the second reading of this bill.
Thank you. That bill is deferred. We turn next to the Caribbean Community Free Entry of Skills National Amendment Bill 2014, Bill number 5 of 2014, first published on the 5th of February 2014, and that bill is in the name of the Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. I invite you, Madam, to proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, colleagues, this amendment to the Caribbean Nationals Act is yet another step being taken by the government of Guyana to comply with our obligations under the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, and in particular, our commitment to the CARICOM single market by facilitating the free movement of persons. As I have said before, Mr. Speaker, colleagues, the issue of free movement evokes different reactions by different groupings. In some instances, persons of certain nationalities complain of not being treated equitably across the region. Indeed, several Guyanese have expressed disappointment with the treatment meted out to them when traveling to various CARICOM territories. The government continues to highlight such instances at different fora and to provide the necessary representation for our nationals. I must indicate, however, that we have seen some improvements in certain places. Mr. Speaker, the recent landmark Shanique Myrie ruling reminds us of the sacred duty to protect and safeguard the traveling public from unnecessary victimization at the hands of those who manage our borders. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, that ruling has other implications for the community, and these are being examined even as we speak. But while insularity does exist in some quarters, we must not cease to work towards ensuring that the integration movement benefits all of our people. Mr. Speaker, permit me though to use this occasion to once reiterate that free movement within the Caribbean community is not absolute. There are a finite number of categories of skilled persons who are permitted to travel across the region without requiring a work permit. As such, a work permit is still required from the respective countries if a CARICOM national does not fit into any of the approved categories. Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding the challenges we encounter from time to time, the government remains committed to the ideals of regionalism and its fundamental principles. And so, Mr. Speaker, Guyana continues to strive ahead in relation to meeting its regional commitments to the CSM. And so what the amendments before us are all about. As you're aware, Mr. Speaker, the House passed in 1996 the Caribbean Community Free Entry of Skilled Nationals Act, Chapter 9302. That act was amended by this House in 2011 to allow for 9 categories of skilled nationals, these being media workers, musicians, artists, sport persons, teachers, registered nurses, persons holding associate degrees, artisans possessing a Caribbean vocational qualification or an approved national vocational qualification, and domestics who have obtained a CPQ. This is in addition to persons with degrees. And today, Mr. Speaker, we are seeking to further amend our Free Entry of Skilled Nationals Act to allow for an even better and greater sense of belonging by CARICOM nationals by allowing the spouse and dependent family members of the principal beneficiary to be accorded similar rights as those granted to the principal beneficiary. And the principal beneficiary basically is the holder of what we call the Caribbean Skilled National Certificate. What are these rights I'm speaking about? Clause 3 of the amendment, Mr. Speaker, provides for a skilled national to apply to the minister to have his certificate verified. Now, once that certificate is verified and meets the requirements, the holder of the certificate can apply to the Chief Immigration Officer to remain in Guyana for a period of indefinite duration. It also sets out the parameters for the minister to disregard a certificate, notwithstanding its verification, if the holder is found to have been convicted of certain offenses. Clause 4, Mr. Speaker, at the verification process at this time can take up to 6 months, and this is what the time that is given in law. In addition, a CARICOM national is given 6 months at the time of entering Guyana, 6 months of stay. However, there is no provision in law to allow for the CARICOM skilled national to work while the certificate is being verified. And so if the certificate takes 3 months, 4 months to be verified, because this verification will be taking place with other territories, then that person, unless he gets a work permit, which is discretionary, will not be able to work. So this amendment now will allow him to work while the certificate is being verified within that 6 months period. Secondly, there is no provision in law to allow for the spouse of a skilled national to work once verification is completed for the indefinite stay is granted for the principal beneficiary. So if a skilled national, let's say from Belize, comes to Guyana, in this case a pilot, and brings his spouse can only work if she gets a work permit from the government of Guyana, and as I said, that's discretionary. The amendment at clause 4 allows the spouse the right to work without having to apply for a work permit. But that can only happen once the certificate is verified and once the principal beneficiary applies and gets indefinite stay. In addition, Mr. Speaker, with the passage of the amendments in clause 4, no restrictions would be placed on the spouse and dependents of the principal beneficiary in relation to their freedom of movement, freedom to leave and re-enter Guyana without further permission. In other words, when they leave, they don't have to come back and get a stamp with 6 months. It would now be automatic. Mr. Speaker, as Guyana continues to grow, we will be attracting more and more skilled CARICOM nationals. In fact, I believe, Mr. Speaker, we will need them and we will need others. Already we have in the aviation sector pilots and other engineers from Barbados, Jamaica, and Belize, and there are more in other sectors. Guyana is a friendly country and we welcome our brothers and sisters from the Caribbean with open arms. And so today we are putting in these additional legal mechanisms to ensure that their stay in our country will be worthwhile. But Mr. Speaker, it would be remiss of me if I do not mention that I am also aware, like all of us in this National Assembly, that we have our Guyanese men and women contributing meaningfully in other CARICOM states in which they live and work. The judges, land surveyors, teachers, nurses, lawyers, I think your own sibling, Mr. Speaker, security sector workers, to name some of them. Unfortunately, it is the few bad mambos that make the news at times, but we make a huge contribution to the region in many fields. And so I hope, Mr. Speaker, that our sister CARICOM states will also put these legislative mechanisms in place so that the dependents of Guyanese skilled nationals in those countries will be legally protected as well. In fact, Mr. Speaker, all CARICOM member states that are party to the CSM are required to do this. And so, Mr. Speaker, I will conclude by saying that I fully believe that the steps being taken by the PPP Civics government is evidence of its commitment to ensuring that its legal obligations are achieved. Guyana has a proud history of ensuring full compliance with our regional obligation. And today, Mr. Speaker, we are no different. We have been checking to see whether these amendments have been made in other jurisdictions, and we haven't been able to confirm that they have been made in law as yet. And so that could very well be the first putting this in place. And so I hope, Mr. Speaker, as has been the trend in this National Assembly to support the regional integration movement, that these amendments will be fully supported. I thank you.
Thank you very much. May I invite Ms. Afko Selvan to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise on behalf of the Partnership for National Unity to offer our support to the bill, Caribbean Community, Free Entry of Skilled Nationals, which stands in the name of the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mrs. Harley Rodriguez-Burkett. Mr. Speaker, the only rock that stays steady, the only institution that works is the family. We know that strong families are the building blocks of strong communities, and strong communities are the building blocks of strong nations. Mr. Speaker, how can we be successful at our jobs without having a closer bond with our family? The support of the APNU is premised on the understanding that free movement of whole families is a precondition to a common market. It is vital to the fostering of any integration movement. The weakness in the Caribbean Community Free Entry of Skilled Nationals Act 1996 is that it created a disconnect with families by omitting to include spouses and dependents in the Act. This bill seeks to correct that deficiency. Mr. Speaker, this amendment is forward-reaching in that it seeks to make the society stronger by ensuring that the family stays together. This is facilitated by amending Section 2 of the Principal Act to include a dependent person, and that means any unmarried child of that person under the age of 18 years, under the age of 25 years, attending school or university full-time, or over the age of 18 years, who due to disability is wholly dependent on that person, whether born in or out of wedlock, and includes a stepchild, a child adopted by law, or a child of the family. Clause 4 amends Section 10 of the Principal Act to give the spouse of a person who holds a Schedule II certificate which was issued by a qualifying state and verified by the minister, the right to engage in gainful employment or other occupation. It further provides for a person who holds a certificate issued by a qualifying state and who is granted permission under Section 4 of the Principal Act to enter and remain in Guyana for 6 months, the right to engage in gainful employment or other occupation for the duration of that permission. Mr. Speaker, even as we welcome this movement, the questions which loom are how many CARICOM nationals and their families come here seeking employment annually? Is the minister in a position to provide this answer? Are we creating the conditions that attract nationals from our Caribbean sister countries? Mr. Speaker, though it is important that we pass the enabling legislations, side by side with that must be the conditions that would attract skilled nationals and their families to come and remain in Guyana. I wish therefore to once again offer our support to the bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Alliance to Change, wish to speak to the Mrs.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Alliance for Change, it is my pleasure to say that we are more than happy to endorse the amendments to Bill number 5 of 2014. That is the Caribbean Community Free Entry of Skills Nationals Amendment Bill 2014. GAN is honored to have the seat of CARICOM here within our shores. And we feel that the amendments to this bill and the promotion of the provisions of this bill go very far to ensure that we build and develop our Caribbean community. Quite often we in Guyana face the challenge of a brain drain. And we see that we, on this occasion, could most possibly transfer and convert a brain drain to a brain gain. As we know, we have several individuals within the CARICOM region that are quite often migrating to other locations. In most cases, the developed world that can offer more attractive salaries and terms and conditions. So we're excited that on this occasion, we are going to promote the Caribbean community and encourage the people that have skills within the Caribbean to stay within this region. We are happy, therefore, to highlight the benefits of a Caribbean and West Indian cricket team, and we continue to see this as a means of promoting our skills within the region and keeping them at home. With those brief words, we are happy to say that we are happy to support the amendment to this bill.
Honourable members, by inadvertently I committed to call on the Honourable Member Minister Dr. Namo. Also, I invite you to sir, please make your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also stand in support of my colleague, Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs, in the presentation of this bill to strengthen our legislation, which has been on the statute book since 1996. It's a clear indication that while we amended that statute in 2011, we continue to see the need to improve areas where we can make life comfortable for those of our CARICOM brothers and sisters who are seeking to have play a part in the development process of our country and to work here. I'm indeed pleased, Mr. Speaker, of the atmosphere in this House, and especially the presentation of our young parliamentary colleague from the opposition in her analysis of the bill and in her presentation and support. Particularly pleased also that the other parliamentary party from the Alliance of Change is supporting this legislation. And I hope that we can find in our heart the same type of commonality in other pieces of important legislation which hinge on our relationship with CARICOM so that we can move and make progress in this country. Mr. Speaker, I therefore want to indicate clearly that while we are making provisions in our law to welcome our brothers and sisters from other CARICOM countries, we equally expect reciprocal arrangement in those countries so that our colleagues who are moving from Guyana and interested to work in CARICOM can equally find access unhindered in their quest for employment opportunities. The CARICOM community cannot be developed or cannot improve unless our skills are allowed that easy access to work and to share their knowledge within the region. The more our skills move around, the more we will be able to assess best practices, to understand each other mode and method of production, and so we'll be able to benefit from a learning process where each of us teach each other on our way of doing things. And so, Mr. Speaker, this is yet another piece of legislation by the PPPC government to ensure that we are acting consistent with the requirements of the CARICOM community. We continue to do so. And while I hear that we may very well be the first to pass this piece of legislation, we have also taken the lead in the ratification of Convention 189 on domestic servant workers within CARICOM, and equally taken the lead in the presentation in CARICOM of the order on HIV/AIDS, which was done here at the last sitting. So, Mr. Speaker, I support my colleagues, and I thank the other members of the opposition who supported this important piece of legislation.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs, you may reply.
Mr. Speaker, I would just like to express gratitude, my gratitude for all those who've spoken on all sides of the House. MP Samuel Salman, Kathy Hughes, Dr. Nanda Gopal. I would also like to say that Ms. Salman asked whether we have the number of skilled nationals from CARICOM coming to Guyana to seek employment. What I can say is that we have had in the last few years 35 such persons requesting the issuance of certificate, because a national from another CSM territory can also apply for the certificate here, but I can also provide you with the verifications at another time. So, Mr. Speaker, once again, I would like to express my gratitude, and I think this sends a very clear signal to not only our population, but the populations of CARICOM, that Guyana continues to maintain the lead and to set the trend for others to follow as far as it relates to our commitment to the integration movement. I thank you.
Thank you. Honourable members, thank you. With that said, I now put the question, and that is that the bill be not read a second time. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Let the bill be read for a second time.
Caribbean Community Free Entry of Skilled Nationals Amendment Bill number 14, Bill number 5 of 2014.
Thank you. Other members, we will now resolve ourselves in the committee of the whole assembly to consider the bill clause by clause. This is a bill with 4 clauses, and I will put each clause independently. Other members, I propose the question that clause 1 stands as part of this bill. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Clause 1 stands as part of the bill. I put the question that clause 2 stands as part of this bill. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no.